Hey, welcome everybody. We are doing another installment of our 2020 Summer Virtual Book Festival. Today I am outdoors in the great wooded life of the middle of Michigan. It's actually Upper Michigan. I'm on a writing hermitage, so we're trying to do this from the local boat launch. So if there's any idiosyncratic, that's the word I was looking for, craziness with video or audio, please hang in with us and we'll get through. Today our featured author is Cheri Burton, and she wrote this really awesome book, this book called Discovery. This is so much fun. We're gonna have a great conversation today. So Cheri, if you could just give us, just to get us launched, a brief description of the book, a brief little synopsis.
Cindy is current day. She's going through her grandmother's belongings in the storage shed, and long story short, she discovers her grandmother's journals. And in these journals, she finds so many secrets that she had no clue of. Her grandmother was a writer on the Orphan Trains, and she was adopted. I mean, there's just so many things that come about in this that is amazing. And Cindy and her mother goes on this journey to discover all of the different, this is awful, to discover what secrets her grandmother was hiding from her, basically.
Okay. Now this is one book in a series. So
Correct.
Can you talk a little bit about the series and how the series is going to evolve as we get through reading more and more of the books?
Yes, the series is going to be 18 children, 18 books, and we're introduced to 17 of the 18 children in book one, and each book will tell one of the children's stories. You'll find out how they came about to ride on the orphan trains. You'll find their earliest memory, what landed them either in the asylum or on the streets or whatever the case may be. You'll follow them onto the trains and then learn what happens next. And I use a lot of history in these books to tell the children's tales.
Okay. So talk to me a little bit about research. How did you go about doing the research? Did you ride the rail for the same trip that the children took, or did you just do extensive online or library research?
Mostly extensive research. I've got over 100 books that I use to tell their history, their whatever is going to happen in their particular book. Google is my friend. So basically, the stories just come to me, and then I fill in the stories with the history.
Okay. Any questions for Cheri at this point?
How many of these books are already published?
We've got 3 already, and I am currently in the process of writing book 4. I hope to have it done by late summer, and then it will go to the editor and everything, so it will be out yet this year.
Okay.
Excellent. There's a component, part of the history of the story, there's a component of the Purple Gang. And for people who don't know who the Purple Gang was, that was a less than above board reputable organization. I hate to term it mafia or mob, but it kind of was. And it was, as opposed to an Italian organization, it was a Jewish organization with its roots here in Detroit. Can you talk a little bit about how the Purple Gang influenced your story? I know it's introduced in book 1 and then more so in book 2. Can you talk a little bit about that and why you wanted to involve the Purple Gang in the story?
Yeah, well, the Purple Gang, honestly, why I wanted to involve it, because it's history. It's history that a lot of people doesn't know about. and its history of Michigan. And these particular books, at least the first few, are set in Michigan. So I was trying to bring in something that people in Michigan could relate to. And even though most of them are, a lot of people have not heard of the Purple Gang, I'm hoping that through hearing about it now, that it will encourage them to go out and research more and find out more about the history of the Purple Gang in the Michigan area.
Awesome. How did you, they were a pretty violent group. How did you draw the line, make the decision between what you were going to allow in the books as far as the historiographic details, and what you were going to draw that line to not include? Because I had Discovery, I thought, oh, 12, 15-year-old kid could easily read this book and love it. So how did you decide where you were going to put that demarcation?
The books are all, when I first started writing the books, I thought I was writing for adults. Since then, I have been contacted by people, children as young as 9 years old, saying, I've read the books, I enjoyed the books. So now when I write, I really try to keep that in mind. I don't really let it influence me to what material I put in the book, but hi Tina, but I do let it influence me to how graphic. My goal with the books in the series is to be able to have a child, a 9-year-old, read it, or your 99 grandmother read it without being upset by language or how graphic the books are. The reader, and especially the adult reader, will know what is going on, and hey, but I let their minds fill in a lot of it. I'm working on the book 4 right now, and anybody that has read the first 3 books so far knows that Frankie had some kind of experience in Chicago to make him have to leave Chicago. And there's a lot of things in there. It's like, okay, how am I going to tastefully do this without the shock or upsetting the reader? So it's just mainly being able to write it in a way to where the reader understands without beating them over the head with the graphics of the situation.
Sure, yeah. Any other questions? We have some new people in the room. Feel free to, again, we are standing around a book festival table, hanging out with an author. So if you have any questions or comments, just feel free to blurt them out. And if you don't, I'll just keep going. Okay.
How far out west did the Orphan Train go? How much further than Michigan?
Oh, the Orphan Train, it went everywhere. It went out west. We know that several children were adopted into the Indian Territory, and there was also some orphan trains that ran into Canada. So it spanned the nation.
I know I have a friend that's originally from Kansas, and I believe she said there was some type of museum somewhere in Kansas about the Orphan Train.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I will be able to showcase that in future books where they're not just going to stay in Michigan. The first ones are in Michigan. They got the strong Michigan tie, but we'll go out west for quite a few of the books. Quite a few, because I want to show the realm of how far it did go and where it went and that type thing. So
what was the date again that
it ended?
Ended.
1929.
So how long was this program invoked? I mean, how many years? I know that it was especially active during the Great Depression, but for how long a time period are we talking that they would find homes for children in this manner?
75 years. It was from 1854 to 1929, and they shipped over 250,000 children, nearly 250,000 children that most people have never heard of out west to find their homes.
So I'm assuming that the trains, before the Transcontinental Railroad, the trains would have stopped at some point, and they got kids further west by stagecoach or whatever?
Yes. The trains,
Okay.
you know, when they left, like you say, they didn't go fast like the trains we have now. So this, what would maybe take a few hours or, you know, a day now would take several days. And also they were steam trains, so they would have to stop continuously to fill up with water for, you know, to have enough steam to keep going.
Right.
I believe the very first one was in 1854, went to Dowagiac, Michigan, and they took 2 boats and the train to come over to reach Dowagiac. So yeah, there is definitely a lot of moving parts to this.
Yeah, I was doing research for my Western, which focuses heavily on the Pony Express, and the Pony Express and the railroad kind of overlapped in the same year, and I know the Pony Express ended in 1861, so I was just curious about how they got the kids west of the Mississippi before the Transcontinental Railroad.
Right. Yeah.
Or did they stop at the Mississippi?
Yeah. No, they go to a certain point, and then, you know, they go by, like you say, by wagon train or stagecoach to get to where they needed to go.
Okay, awesome. Any other questions? Okay. Jane, did you have a question? I'm sorry.
Oh, that was the one I had. I just didn't know how long it lasted.
Okay. So Cheri, who's your favorite character in the first book, Discovery?
In the first book, I think I fell in love with Tobias. You know, I mean, there's something about him that you just want to just pick him up and either hug him or spank him. I can't decide which one I want to do.
Both.
So it's just, it's really, I don't know. There's something about him that, I don't know. He makes me smile. Because
You wanted so bad for him.
I think yes. And I think the mere fact that his nickname is Mouse just makes him so much more endearing.
And I've got several mice up here that I have. I don't know if we can see them. And then this one is Love, but it has Malta on this one. Where we at? There it is. So I started kind of collecting them, but yeah, he's just, I don't know. There's something about him. He's pretty cool.
Yeah. Who's the character you like least in Discovery?
In Discovery. Oh, okay. I know it's my book, but I'm trying to think of his name. The guy on the train that almost adopted him, or adopted her.
Yeah, I did not like him either. I can't remember his name either.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
thank
His
goodness
name
the
because
children
we don't
were.
like him.
Yeah, thank goodness the children were worldly enough to figure that out.
yes. No, I did not like him or his wife. And so yeah, I mean, if you read into the next book, then at some point Tobias knew what was going on, so he didn't get away with a lot.
And to be so young to understand that made me sad, because you know, today's children are, you know, some of them are worldly, but they still got to keep their innocence, and these children didn't.
Yeah. Well, even children of affluent families grew older faster.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know.
You know, it was just the age. You know, the children were responsible for a lot of things, and even in the household where they had real households with mother and fathers, you know, they were older. They wasn't given money to do their chores or a participation badge if you know they did what they were supposed to do. It was expected of them.
Right. So what do you find your biggest challenge in writing these stories? I know we talked a little bit about this on the TV episode, but give us an idea of what's been so challenging about writing this series for you.
Mainly, I just need to make sure I get it right. so far, the books have come together really well. And the most challenge right now that I've had is with Frankie's story, because Frankie is, I guess, an introvert, and he didn't want to talk to me for a little while. And so it was trying to pull the story from him. And now I think we've come to an understanding. He's really talking. He has a lot to say, and I've had a very good writing week this week, so I'm very pleased with him.
Yeah.
So, it's just, and writing the series, I don't, other than having the voices talk to me, I haven't had a big problem. It's just mainly with a lot of indie authors, the same thing is just getting the word out, because once people read the books, they seem to really enjoy them and love them. So it's just getting the word out.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your writing process? I've been asking all of our authors this because we're starting to keep score now. Are you a plotter or a pantser, and are you analog or digital?
I am a pantser, which means
Okay.
when I'm writing it, I don't know what's going to happen until it happens. I have been fretting over this certain scene, and again, it was the scene where Tobias, has everybody read the books? All right, you read them. So it's, there's a certain scene where Frankie needs rescued. And so getting that scene to come to me and to make sure that it's going to tie in with the other books, as I'm writing it now, it's almost as if I had known all along what was going to happen, because it's just coming together very seamlessly, and I'm very pleased that that is happening. So.
Good. And do you write digitally or analog?
I write on Word.
So digitally, you do everything on the computer,
Everything
rather than longhand.
Yeah, my first book was written by hand, and I found out that I'm a very slow typer if I don't know what I'm typing, and it took forever to get that onto there. And we didn't even own a computer when I wrote my first book. I mean, it was in 2000, so we didn't even own a computer. They were very new in people's households then. So now that I have a computer, I use it.
Excellent. Okay, any other questions from anyone else? No?
You guys are quiet today. I know you have a lot to say. Laura, you always have a lot to say.
Come on, join the gang. Okay, so as an indie publisher, talk to me about the process you went through. How did you decide to go indie? What made you decide to go indie rather than to look for an agent and go through the traditional publishing path process? What made you decide this was something you were going to do on your own?
I was actually with a traditional publisher with my first two books. And honestly, I found out that I was doing most of the work. He was getting most of the money. And basically, I decided, you know what? I want more control. I want he was really good. Don't get me wrong. This particular publisher was very good. And, I had a say in my covers. But I know that a lot of the publishers, you don't have a say. They just kind of show it to you and say, this is it, and deal with it.
Yeah, that's very true.
And I wanted the control. I wanted the control over what covers I used, what material I used. I mean, if you go with a traditional publisher, they can tell you, okay, I don't like the name Malta because people's going to say it's Malita, because I think some people actually think that is her name, but it is Malta. And they can say, no, let's name her Sharon. I want control over what content is in my books. And would I like a little more help from the publisher that can get your name out there? Yeah, that would be awesome. But I think I'm pretty much a control freak, that I like to know and be able to do my own thing with it. And, I can say, okay, I'm sorry, Frankie's story is going to be a little late, but I would rather disappoint the readers in the time frame that I come out with rather than the content within the book. So I am able to do that and meet this guideline. you know, I have read some big name authors who are with big name publishers who honestly, you know, you get to the, let's see, there's one particular, I got to the 6th book, and the 6th book felt like she phoned it in. And she is a big name, multi-million, you know, that type thing publisher or writer. And it's just like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that the content that the readers expect and the continuity of the books, I just want to make sure everything's there.
Absolutely. What's your biggest marketing frustration?
Again, just figuring out, you know, I have paid for some marketing, and I've paid some pretty good money to have a like a blitz type thing, and you don't get the return on it. So it's just trying to find out who to go with that's going to be able to produce enough results that it's worth your money.
Right. Yeah, it's like trying to find the magic X on the map, you know, to discover the treasure. It's not as easy as everybody thinks it is.
It's not. And I've got amazing covers. Thank you, Laura. Laura's in here. She's my cover artist. You know, I've got amazing covers. I've got amazing ads that she does for me, and she does wonderful trailers. So it's not the content, it's just getting it viewed by the people that read
so
it.
Here's the book again. And Laura, I got to say, you do great work. This is awesome. And I really love them. Do you have the other books handy, Cheri, so that we can show those as well? I only have the one.
I do. This one is the next one. This is Shameless. This is Tobias's story. And you can see that the little mouse on front, so that kind of gives into
a little mouse. It's my
nickname.
I love that. Laura, you did a great job with that.
And then this is Treachery. This is book 3. And honestly, I haven't shown book 4 yet, but if I knew how to get the page up there, I would show you and I would do a cover reveal on that. And
ooh, that would be exciting. So this is how you do it. Go in and push the button that says share screen, and you'll be able to share it. Oh, there you go. Lovely. Nice.
So that's the cover for Frankie's book.
Laura, I gotta tell you, I love how you are tying all of the books together with the cover. I'm looking forward to having all 18 books on my shelf, because they're gonna look like a set when they're done. I mean, this is really exciting. It's gonna look like an entire tapestry of all these stories once we get all the
it's
covers
like
together.
I want them all now.
Yeah. So good job, Laura. Well done. So let me shift gears here just a second, and just because, you know, I feel like I'm dominating conversation. So Laura, tell us about what it's like being a cover artist working with Cheri. How do you guys come up with the ideas, and then how does it finally manifest for you as a cover?
To be honest with you, what basically happens is that Cheri gets a vision in her head, and then she tries to communicate that to me, and then we start doing all kinds of research into different images in order to come up with what speaks to her the best. And then I'll come up with a couple of different examples, and then she'll choose one that she likes the best and then say, can we do this instead? Can we do that? And so it's more like a collaborative effort. So there's a lot of Cheri's voice in these covers.
Nice. Anybody else have any questions? And Cheri, I think we lost your video.
No, I'm here. Where are we at?
You're here. Oh, there you are. Yay!
I'm here.
See, Zoom is not a fail-safe. It does not work perfectly every time, but I love working with it because we can all connect in a way that normally we wouldn't be able to. Cheri, talk to me a little bit about your other books. I know that you have other books you've written besides this Orphan Train saga. Tell me a little bit about those.
Yes, I originally started out in romance. The first one I wrote was Tears of Betrayal, and I ended up writing that, I had no clue. I didn't grow up saying I'm going to be a writer. It found me. I always say I didn't choose writing, writing chose me. So the very first one started out as a short story. I had a friend who was going through a hard time, and for some reason, I still have no clue. I told her, I said, I'm going to write you a happy ending. So I took, and this is the exact, I don't want to mess anything up here, but this is the exact red clipboard. It's been through heck. And I had pencils and paper, and I started writing what I thought was going to be just a cute short story. I was going to hand it to her and we'd have a laugh. And somewhere along the way, very early on, the voices took over and showed up and scared the heck out of me because I had no idea what this whole process was. And they took over, and I found out I wasn't writing the book. And even my husband, he goes, I told him one day, I put the stuff down because something had happened in it that I had no clue was going to happen because, again, I thought I was writing it. And I put the clipboard down, I walked away, and he's like, what's the matter? I said, I'm not writing the book. And he goes, what do you mean you're not writing the book? And I said, someone else is writing the book. I'm just writing it down. Anyway, he was ready to call the middle place for me and get me a straight jacket.
Yeah.
But then once the book came out and he read it, he goes, I understand. He goes, you don't talk like this. You don't use words like this. He goes, I think I understand. But then he also said, please don't tell everybody about the voices because we don't want to think you're crazy.
Yeah, right. We don't want other people to fit you for a self-hugging jacket.
Exactly. So I have Tears of Betrayal, and that's that one. Amber receives divorce papers on the day of her husband's funeral. So that's my kind of catch line for that one. And it usually grabs people who want to know what the heck's going on with that. And
yeah, that's definitely a done deal right there.
Exactly. So, and then I've got, what do I've got? I've got the King of My Heart. And for some reason, I don't know, that one there, my husband says it's his favorite. Granted, he has not read the Orphan Trains saga, so we've got to get on to him about that. But
oh my gosh,
no,
I'm going to send that man a note.
There's a lot of humor in the King of My Heart. It's an Elvis impersonator who falls in love with a clown, and he's terrified of clowns. So I was actually reading Janet Ivanovich when I was writing that one, and I think the humor from her book shows that, I kind of went that direction, and I think it's funny and I enjoyed it. But Somewhere in My Dreams, and again, that one's just a little different. Her husband dies, but before he dies, they had this conversation. They didn't know he was going to die. It was an accident, but one day they were talking, and he said, if anything ever happens to me, wait for me. I'm going to be back. So she starts waiting for him, and I'm not going to give away that one, but that's kind of a different one.
Very cool.
I've got Surviving the Storm, and that one's more of a darker, what happens when the man of your dreams turns out to be the man of your nightmares. It's kind of a sleeping with the enemy type premise on that one, but a lot of people, are saying, there's a twist in there that they didn't see coming. So
nice.
And Love in the Bluegrass, that's the sequel to Tears of Betrayal. What else do I have? I'm probably forgetting some. Am I forgetting one, guys? You guys know what? And then I have children's books as well that I write under my real name of Cheri A. Jones.
Wow. Tina, I see a little hand raise icon. Did you have a question? I don't want to miss your question if you had one.
No, I was talking to the dog.
Yeah, I got it. Okay.
You got to keep your eye on him all the time.
Mine's sitting right next to me. I understand. So Cheri, you write in some diverse work. Is there a genre or a style that you can never imagine writing in, and why?
No, I really think I could do it. I mean, if you saw my to-do list, I just don't have time to do them. I've got my Jerry books that so far I've got one. I've got several ideals for others. And that was one I guess I forgot to say. But anyway, I've got several ideals for others. But the Orphan Train saga has just kind of taken and absorbed all of my energy right now. I've got the idea, we're looking at Laura there, but I've got the idea for a serial killer book, you know, and it's like, okay, that's probably going to have to be written under a different name, because how can I go from historical fiction to a serial killer? But, you know, again, there's not a day for everything.
Well, let's have that conversation. I've talked with other authors about this. To have a pseudonym or not have a pseudonym, and everybody has different reasons for it. What is it in your head that says a different genre requires a different pen name? Why would you make that choice over just simply writing multiple genres under your own name?
So far, I've written all of the books under, except for the children's books, I have written under the my name of Cheri A. Burton, which Burton was my mother's maiden name, and that's how I got that.
Okay.
I know, I guess sometimes I worry that people, again, the Orphan Trains saga, it's clean. You know, your grandmother can read it, your child can read it, at least language-wise, and, you know, that type thing. So I worry sometimes when people have read the Orphan Trains saga and then they go to read some of my romance, which was my earlier work, and which do have swear words in them, and do have, or does have other things that they might not be expecting if they've read one of the different ones first. One of the books that I did leave out was Things Like Yesterday. It's a time travel romance. And I had one of the reviewers one time, she was upset because I guess there wasn't sex in it. Now, if they've read any of my other books, they're going to see things in there that you won't see in the Orphan Train saga or whatever. You know, it goes into kind of some detail of, you know, what happens, you know.
Right.
But with Seems Like Yesterday, it just seemed like they didn't need to go there. And I'm not going to just do gratuitous language or do gratuitous.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so she said it should have been a YA novel. Well, fine. I mean, it was only one reviewer, but, you know, I think when I'm writing things, I do think, okay, what will my audience think? You know, and how will they react?
So let me ask you this. How do you handle when you've been to several book signing events, you do public speaking. How do you handle the identity crisis? Because for me, I'm writing in multiple genres. I have 11 books out now. I've written so far in 5 multiple genres. I am me across the board, and people will either read it or they won't based on the genre, not based on who I am. And the other reason that I do it is because I go to a signing event and I write the wrong name. I am just dead in the water. So my big question is, you have so many books. Do you ever go to an event and have both genres, several genres on the table? And then how do you sign different things? Give me the logistics of how that works.
Okay, so with the exception of my children's books, right now everything's under Cheri A. Burton. So
Okay.
to the signing events, my husband's excellent carpenter. He has made me wonderful displays. And so usually the children's books are on the top shelf. The romance and other books are underneath. And then Jerry's usually sitting on his own because he's it's more of a kind of out there intuition, paranormal, not romance, but paranormal type book. And then I have the Orphan Trains over here. So when they walk up to my table, I will say, these are children's books. These are not. These are romance. And these are historical fiction. And then I say, if you're like my mom, you're going to skip over a couple pages in my romance books. And if you're like my Aunt Barb, you're going to read them twice. You know, so that's basically how I tell it. It gets a laugh, and then people pretty much gravitate to whatever genre that they're looking for.
So has anybody at a festival ever asked you, why are these written under different names?
Yeah, I just tell them, you know, that I keep the children's books separate because they're children's books. And, you know, they're okay with that. It's just, I do have to stop and think, okay, what name am I writing? You know, where am I at? What name? But I do that with I hear Wally trying to get in. I do hear that with my, or do that with my checkbook or signing other things. You know, I literally now have to pause and say, okay, am I writing? Because I don't really write the full name. So that's like, but that's why I went with Cheri A, because I can consistently do that. So now if I write J, it's not quite as bad as if it was a whole full name.
Right. No, that makes sense. Any other questions from anyone else in the room?
Well, in my opinion, you should keep your same name, Cheri A. Burton, no matter what genre you're writing in. That's my opinion. You know, your children's books are one thing. I think you should keep the Cheri A. Burton.
I like it. It's comfortable, and I feel confident when I'm using that name.
I think you should keep that no matter, even if you go to your serial killer.
Thank you. I'll take that on board.
I have a quick
Any other-
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was really curious as to how you handle dialogue in your stories, especially if you're a pantser and you don't do you don't do an outline per se. How do you get the voice for each of your characters?
That's a really good question.
I guess I just write what the voices tell me to. I know that sounds like a cop-out, but it's true. When they're talking, I know who's talking. Like, I've got a little child has asked me a question, and again, it's one of the voices, and it was a child's voice. And immediately when he spoke, then I knew what book that voice needed to go to. And I don't know if that book's ever going to get written now. Laura, you know which one I'm talking about. You did the whole tree cover for me, but it's just, I knew that it was this one particular child. So normally when they talk to me, I know who's talking. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Diana, you're muted.
Okay, so that explains that question. Okay, so you don't get lost with the dialogue between your characters. I'm guessing you listen to the voices in different voices, in different tonalities, and that's how you keep them separate.
It must be, because again, when they're talking, I know who is telling me what.
Okay, and then do you ever lose track in conversation and have to stop and go, wait a minute, who's speaking here? Does that ever come to you?
It hasn't yet.
Okay, good.
What? You know, well, let me say that there's a possibility that in book one, the very first book I was writing, when I didn't know what I was doing, there might have been one time when Robin and Amber were having a conversation, and then I had to go back and change because it wasn't that. So yes, I guess it has happened in that book, but as I've grown as an author and learned the process, I haven't had that problem.
Excellent. Because I struggle with it all the time. This is why I'm not a pantser. For me, everything has to be outlined, everything has to be organized. It allows me fluidity. If I have an outline, I can jump around back and forth. So it allows me the flexibility of fluidity. If I just had to wait to figure out what was coming next, I think I'd drive myself crazy.
I would say that book 17 is going to be a little bit more of a planned book, because book 17 is, I'm not telling you who it is, but it's kind of a overview of, this is the keeper of the secrets.
But you have to tie things up.
And I have to tie things up, and it will also spread us into book 18, who possibly could spread us into more. It depends, I mean, how my mind is when we get to that, you know, and where we could go. Yeah. But it does open it up to, I could do this forever. I mean, there was, like I said, there was over 250,000 children, and I could always work backwards to the 1800s or whatever. It's just, again, a lot of research to, you know, when I'm writing now, I'm sitting there going, I'll write something. So wait a minute, was there playpens then? Or did we have, I had to do a whole research for Discovery to find out if there was windshield wiper and how many and where was it and all of this stuff. I mean, there's just, you can't just write. That's one thing I have found with historical fiction. You can't just write a book like I would the romance and just make things up as I go. I mean, if I don't get it right, the readers are going to call me on it. So it's my job to make sure that everything is as it should be.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right now I'm saying if I put a particular date and, for instance, August 2nd, where am I at, 1928, and I'm saying there's a full moon, then I have to go and make sure that on August 22nd or 2nd, that there was indeed a full moon. And luckily there was, and I needed there to be, so we're good, but I have to make sure of things like this because the people that go around checking are going to check.
Yep.
Cheri.
And especially since this series, you do a lot of educational speaking with it. So absolutely, you got to make sure it's right. Yep,
Right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Cheri, do you still find that new customers think you're kind of crazy about hearing voices and your followers have learned to understand that?
I haven't had, usually I joke about it because I'll mention them like when I'm doing a lecture, I do Orphan Train lectures. And so when I'm doing one of my lectures and I'm talking about myself at first and saying how I got into writing, then I'll talk about the voices. And then I also go in to say that, when I first started them, and it was my daughter, she's like, Mom, I really wish you wouldn't tell everybody that you hear voices, they're going to think you're crazy. But I usually incorporate that into them. And then some people do have questions about the voices and, they try to understand the voices. And some people think that it's maybe a religious thing or maybe it's and it's not. It's just, maybe it's a thought. Maybe I'm explaining it wrong. But I have heard other authors who also talk about their voices and they seem to say the same things that I do about how the information comes to them.
Yep. Yeah, in all the authors I've spoken with in the last 10 years that I've been doing this, what I've found is that your author tribe will never look at you like you have three heads when you tell them you hear voices. It's just a natural part of what we do and how we do it. So. And I think that's why we need an author tribe, so that we can remind ourselves that we're not completely nuts.
We're not nuts.
Well, I have a sister who's clairvoyant, so believe me, I understand.
Oh, there you go. She should write some books. She can join the tribe.
Well, she should, really.
I'm sure she's got some great stories.
Oh, believe me, she does.
No. Any other questions for Cheri before we wrap up our little time here together?
I have two.
Go.
So you have to be somewhat of a plotter if you know there's going to be 18 books.
Voices told me there were going to be 18 books. There's 18 children listed in Discovery. And I do know mostly what child will have what story, so maybe part of that is plotting, but I don't write down what's going to happen because I tried that when I first started writing and it never happened. So I just quit writing. I mean, I would outline and I would say, okay, it happens here, it happens here, it happens here, and the voices were like, oh yeah, let's go this way. It never followed the guideline or the outline.
So do you have book one is this one, book two is this one, this child, this child, this child. If they talk to you out of order, are you working on your books out of order?
If somebody says something to me, then I will go in and make a note because I've got like a file with their names on it. So if someone comes up and says here, or I say, oh, I better revisit this in this book, then I'll go in and put it in their file. Or like I say, 17 has some answers and incorporates a lot of the first books. So when I know what part of this will go into that book, then I definitely put it into his. I'll just give you that. But anyway, I'll put it into his folder. But I do know, again, Frankie is the book I'm working on, and since you guys are on here, I'll let you know that Slim will be next, mostly because those books are very intertwined, and all of these characters are very, you know, they're really into each book. And that's the hardest part with these first, I'm going to say 5 books, is that I have to go back, you know, so if you see a character who dies, then they might, you know, they'll show up in another one of these books because they're going to be revisiting some of the scenes and different things.
Yeah, it's all interconnected, but from different points of view.
Different points of view. Diana, you haven't read, you've only read Discovery, right?
Yeah, I'm working on Mouse's story now. Yeah, okay. I'm working on Mouse's story now.
So when you get to there, you'll see different points of view from him, and then when you get to Anastasia's book, then you'll see that something you thought might have been one way is going to be, you're just going to be like, wow, right. I didn't expect that. So, you know, but I didn't know it. You know, I had her pegged as this one way, and then that might not,
and then, you know, she revealed herself to be somewhere else. Yeah.
Correct. But I also know, like, I've got a thing up here with all of the children's names, and I know, okay, well, this book is going to be going here, and this book is going to be going here, and this book, but it's because I use so much history, and I know what history is going to be in that character's book.
Excellent.
So are these based on true people, or are these all made up?
The children in my books are fictional, but the stories, the history around them is fact.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? Okay, Cheri, we're gonna wrap up for today. Okay. If you can give us, if you're running any sales or any promotions right now, how people can reach you to get signed copies. Just give us the whole, here's your commercial time, go for it.
Yeah, if you want a signed copy, just cheriaburton.com. All of my books are discounted on my website. They're discounted from the what you'll see on Amazon, and you can get them on. You can get them signed, and I'll be happy to put them in the mail for you Monday.
Awesome.
Yeah, because our post office is closed, so it has to be Monday, guys.
Right. So are you currently running any sales or promotions for your books? I know that the next book is going to be coming out shortly, and you may be doing promotions at that time. I just wasn't sure if you had something going on now.
Right. No, just the discounted, what they normally are on my website, which is really discounted from Amazon. So yeah, you can definitely get them cheaper there. But I'll be running different sales again with especially Discovery. I'm hoping to get maybe a book club. I don't know. We're kind of talking about that. But if not, right. I'm going to lower the price on ebook on that as well prior to releasing Guardian.
Excellent. Okay, before I close out this day's event, any other questions or comments from anyone else in the room?
I already sent you a message. I sent you a message via Messenger to ask about your books.
So check your Facebook Messenger, Cheri, when we get done here. Jane, go ahead.
Thank you for including me in this. Enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you for showing up. I really appreciate all of you coming and saying hi and supporting me and making me not feel nervous, because this is the first time I've ever done this. So
it's
anxiously awaiting the next book, Guardian.
Good. I appreciate that.
And also anxiously awaiting another book with Cheri.
With Cheri, I know you are. You've said that. And as soon as I can get time, but I really am concentrating on Frankie's book, but as soon as I can get it went out as well.
Okay, excellent. Thanks everybody for coming. This has been another edition of Pages Promotions Virtual Book Festival. And you can find us on Facebook under 2020 Virtual Book Festival. You can find us at pagespromotions.com. On our Pages Promotions website, you can find a link under Indie Reads TV with all of the Zoom gathering meetings that we've had all this month. So if you missed something, go back and check it out. Lots of authors are offering discounts on their books throughout the month, so you might want to go back and see that. Cheri, your Zoom meeting will be up on YouTube tomorrow afternoon, and you'll all be able to see that link on Facebook when I post it.
Okay,
Thanks,
great.
everybody, for coming. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.